Yes, Aspedia. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the channel. I hope your day and your week are going very well so far. The NFL Week 12 is officially here, and I have a ton of great picks to go ahead and share with you guys. But first, as always, people, please make sure to go ahead and hit the subscribe button, hit that like button, and drop a comment down below. It helps the channel grow, and it really does mean a ton to us. With a new day and a new week of NFL football comes new opportunities to go ahead and make some money. I have a ton of picks in this week's slate. I have 13 single bets. I also have some parlays, some teasers, ton of great value in today's picks. If you've never watched the NFL Oracle before, we go through almost every single game in the NFL week slate and give you at least one pick in almost every game. Not every game I go through, I don't feel it. Also, we don't do Sunday Night Football because I do a separate video for that. But plenty of options, plenty of picks. And guys, before we dive into this week's picks, we have to recap last week, and holy crap, was it a good week. Yeah, guys, we went absolutely nuclear. It's not the first time it's happened this year, but it's another nuclear week for us. We absolutely crushed it last week. I don't know what to say. I don't know how I'm doing it. I don't know if I got magic powers. I'm the Oracle, I guess. So, I see everything. But, oh, my God. 12-2 on single bets, 3-0 on teasers. We went 1-2 on parlays, but we had a plus 289 parlay, so we were profitable in literally every area. Only a couple close misses. We had Browns money line. That wasn't close. We had Ravens -3. Those are the only two losses we had in the single bet slate. 14 picks, went 12-2. So much value. We don't have the units up right now, but in terms of unit plays, we won well over 12 units last week. It was absurd. It was insane. What a week from us here on the show. And guys, we've been doing it all season long. 66, 38, and 3 on the season. Our single bets. We are 7-13 on parlays. We've hit some really big ones, including a plus 1,000 parlay earlier this year. And we're also now 12-12 on our teasers, but most of our teasers are plus money teasers. So whatever way you want to shake it, guys, we have been profitable in every aspect of this show. So guys, if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button. What are you doing if you're not subscribed? I'm giving out, all these picks are free. You're missing out on free wins, free money every week that you don't watch this show. And do you guys really think I was going to have a week like that and not break out the money gun? Let's go! Yes, baby, let's go! Yes, let's go! This is what you get when you watch the NFL Oracle, guys. We're swimming in money this year. Swimming in money. 13 single bets, teasers, parlays, all that good stuff coming to you right now in this week's video. All right, guys, we're jumping right into the outlier screen. And our first pick in this Week 12 NFL slate, we're starting off with Thursday Night Football. This video is coming out on Thursday afternoon, so make sure to go ahead and get this pick in before Thursday Night Football kicks off tonight. And starting off, guys, we're going Browns plus 3.5. We're getting a little ballsy here right off the top. There's just something fishy about this game. Sometimes, guys, when it comes to betting, you have to see what the odds makers are giving you, and sometimes they give you hints as to where they think this game is going to go. Why in any world would the Steelers only be 3.5-point favorites in this game? They just beat the Baltimore Ravens and the Washington Commanders in back-to-back weeks. They're 8-2 overall. The Browns are the flip side. They're the bizarro Steelers. They're 2-8, having an awful season. They just got blown out by the New Orleans Saints of all teams, right? This is what the Browns have become. And yet, somehow, some way, the Browns are only 3.5-point favorites. Now, they are at home, and there's a weather component to this game. There's expected to be winds of 20 to 30 miles per hour. That's probably the realistic reason as to why this line is where it's at. But also, just the history tells us that these AFC North division battles are always weird. They're always unpredictable, and they're typically usually close. And for as bad as the Browns have been this year, let's be honest, on paper, they still have reasons why you'd like to bet them. And it's the reason why a lot of people have been betting them still, including myself. I've bet on the Browns a lot this year, and I've been wrong a lot of the time because they do have a lot going for them. They have a really great head coach and Kevin Stefanski. The offensive line has their issues. We know that. But defensively, they have playmakers. Denzel Ward, Myles Garrett. Like, they have playmakers. This should be, on paper, a good defense. On the offensive side of the football, look, they still have Nick Chubb. They still have Jameis Winston. I know he's inconsistent, but last week he actually played pretty well. They don't have much in the way of receivers, but they do have some weapons with Elijah Moore and Jerry Jeudy and David Njoku. So on paper, this Browns team still has components that make them enticing from a betting standpoint. For me in this matchup, one of the reasons why I'm taking this, obviously the home field advantage, the weather, the AFC North, all that stuff. There's also the fact that the Steelers, yes, they've won their last 2 games, but Russell Wilson in the last 2 games has really not looked great. He's starting to look a little bit more like Broncos Russ, which is not a good thing. The Steelers defense has really been carrying them of late. Actually, well, I mean, that's kind of the story always with the Steelers. All season long, the defense has been carrying them. But I don't know. Russell Wilson's been souring for me. I think they've gotten lucky to win a couple of these games with how he's played. I think he's due for a stinker. I think the stinker is going to come in this game here. There is a little bit of sharp action on the Browns. Not a ton of sharp action, but the betting discrepancies, I believe we go ahead and look at the betting numbers here. 15% of the bets are on the Browns spread, but 33% of the money is on the Browns spread. So not a massive discrepancy, but we do see there is more money than there are tickets on the Browns, which is usually a sign of sharp action. Not significant, but it's still a little bit of sharp action. The Steelers secondary is also okay. They're right now 18th in passing yards allowed. The Browns offense, obviously, we know all year long the numbers don't look great, but with Jameis Winston, this offense sometimes they can throw it deep and they can make some big plays. I'm not saying the Browns are going to win this game, guys. I'm not taking a money line here. I just think the Browns are going to go ahead and keep this one close in this matchup. I mean, look at the last two times they played last year. The last time they played in Cleveland, the Browns won that game 13-10. The previous meeting before that, in September of last year, the Browns lost in Pittsburgh 26-22. So the Browns, yes, the games, they lost one, they won one, but the last two meetings they're typically close. This is what the AFC North is. A lot of these games are ugly, they're close, they're low-scoring games here. I think the Browns can at least hang around in this one. Plus 3.5 seems like a really good spot. I know a lot of people are probably going to call me stupid for this, but we're rocking with the Browns plus 3.5. And like I said, these AFC North matchups are usually these kind of low-scoring, ugly games. So give me the under here, 37.5, which is for minus 115 on FanDuel. Both teams pretty decent cover rates at this line of 37.5. A 60% hit rate so far this year for Cleveland on this line of under 37.5, and a 50% hit rate for Pittsburgh. So not a really bad spot here for the Browns or the Steelers. The Steelers obviously have a good defense. Even if the Browns have some success moving the football, I don't think Cleveland's going to score a bunch of points in this one. On the flip side, I don't think Pittsburgh's offense is all that great. I know the Browns' defense, statistically speaking, haven't been great, but I don't think the Pittsburgh Steelers are the team that will take advantage of some of the weaknesses this Browns defense has. So I think this game will be a little low scoring. I think this is going to be a field goal game that's going to come down to the wire. I see this being something in the ballpark of like a 2017, a 17-14. I think this is going to be a really ugly Thursday Night Football game. This is kind of the game where, like, if you don't have action on it or you're not a fan, I probably wouldn't be watching it. All right, guys, next up we got Pats Dolphins, 1 p.m. kickoff on Sunday. I'm going with the over here, 45.5 in this matchup. The spread 7.5. I just don't love the line for either of those teams. If I had to pick, gun to my head, had to pick a spot, I'd probably lean Patriots plus 7.5. They have been playing pretty well lately. But overall, I think the over is probably the safer play. Look, the Dolphins secondary has been pretty solid, but overall, I don't think they're that great of a team defensively. They're giving up 22.1 points per game this season, which isn't that bad, but I just think overall this is a team that can give up points. In New England, like I said, their offense, obviously, we look at all their numbers. Their season numbers aren't going to look great because before Drake May, the numbers were really, really bad with Jacoby Brissett. But the last few weeks, New England has been playing better. They've been losing still, but 22 points versus the Rams, 19 points versus the Bears, 17, 25, 16, 21. Since Drake May's taken over, they've scored at least 16 points in every single game under the Drake May era. So they can at least score a couple touchdowns. You know they're going to throw a couple touchdowns in there. I think this game is a must-win for Miami, obviously. If they want to make the playoffs, they really don't have any room for error here. They have to win this game. New England has traditionally struggled in Miami. I think the Dolphins' offense is starting to get going. Obviously, Miami coming off a couple of big wins, including that. And I know they lost the Bills game, but that was a pretty solid game as well. They lost to the Bills, but it was a tight game. They beat the Rams. They crushed the Raiders. The Dolphins have definitely been rounding into form with Tua now back. This offense can definitely score points. I think New England's defense, yes, they have Barmore back, and overall, I'd say they're an average defense this year. I think Miami can at least go ahead and pour on 3 or 4 touchdowns in this matchup. And if that's the case, if Miami, getting jumbled up my words here, if Miami can score at least 4 touchdowns, which I think is very realistic, they score about 28 points in this one. New England should be able to at least contribute about 17 to 20. Again, I don't think Miami's defense is that great. I think New England with Drake May can score at least a few touchdowns in this matchup. I think Miami will do most of the heavy lifting here in terms of the scoring, but I do like the over here, 45.5. I just don't love either of these defenses, and both of these offenses have potential to score some points. All right, guys, next up we got Bucks Giants. It's one of my favorite picks of the entire slate. Actually, if you guys haven't watched H2H, which is the gambling show that Evan and I do together, it comes out on Wednesdays, go check that one out. We have even more picks over there in that video. It's a lot more fun, a little more of a game show type of vibe over there, but it's already out on the channel. Go ahead and check out H2H, really good show. Evan and I do a really good job over there, but this is one of my favorite picks, actually the Fade Me pick that I gave on the video. I love the Buccaneers here, minus 5.5. I know Tampa's been losing a lot of games lately, but I think there's something to be said that these are I know losses are losses, but there's something about impressive losses. In the last few games, I mean, they've been through a gauntlet of a schedule over the last month, and they've had a lot of injuries that's really made it difficult for them. But despite all the injuries, despite the gauntlet of a schedule, Tampa Bay has hung around and nearly won a bunch of these key games. You almost can make the argument that if they had even just Mike Evans back, they win at least 2 of those 4. Look, they barely lose to the Niners 23-20. They barely lose to the Chiefs in overtime 34-20. They barely lose to the Falcons 31-26. The Ravens game, they lost by 10, but that game was a lot closer than the scoreboard shows. So I think when you look at Tampa, there's something to be said that they've been really impressive in their losses. And now, obviously, Mike Evans is expected to return this week. They are coming off of a bye week, so a little extra week of rest to get their team back up to shape. They get Mike Evans back this week, which is going to be a huge boost for an offense that even without Mike Evans and Chris Godwin has held up pretty well. Baker Mayfield, give him all the flowers you can give him. He's been fantastic this year, despite all of the things they've had to go through. I like Tampa Bay a lot in this spot. This spot, as much as I like Tampa Bay, it's almost more about fading the Giants. Look, they benched Daniel Jones. I think they had to do it. They're going to be cutting him, getting rid of him after this year. They needed a change. You can't keep throwing Daniel Jones out every week, but the decision to put Tommy DeVito back out there is a cash grab. It is 100% a, hey, we need to keep fans interested. We need to sell tickets. We need the league to be interested in us. Let's throw out the Italian kid that obviously took the league by storm last year, had his little Jeremy Lin type run. Let's do that again. He's not the right fit. I don't know why they would not put Drew Lock in. Drew Lock is the obvious choice, in my opinion, if you're going to bench Daniel Jones, to throw him out there. This 100% feels like a publicity stunt. It feels like the Giants need to do something to generate some ticket sales, to get people to still come and watch these games despite how bad this team has been this year. Guys, if we really do a deep dive on how Tommy DeVito looked last year for the Giants, he's not a good quarterback. He's just not. I know they won a couple games, but they beat the woolly Patriots. Some of those wins, some of those performances, I'm not saying he was awful. He had some good moments, but Tommy DeVito is, let's just put it out there, he's not a good quarterback. He's going to do the finger thing. They're going to play the Sopranos theme as he comes out in the stadium and all that stuff, and it's fun. It's great fun. It's great content. But from a football standpoint, I don't love this. I don't think Tommy DeVito is going to make this offense any better. I think it's actually going to get worse than what they had Daniel Jones. For this offense, they have Tyrone Tracy, they have Malik Neighbors, they have a couple nice pieces, but overall, this Giants team is an absolute disaster. They're a dumpster fire of a team. They're the worst scoring offense in the NFL, and I don't think Tommy DeVito is going to improve that by any measure. The Giants' one strength has been their running game on the offensive side, and the Buccaneers' strength on defense has been their run defense, so I just don't see. The Bucs defense has not been great in their own right, but I think Tampa Bay off the bye week, they have extra week to prepare for this one. A must-win. The Bucs have a very thin chance of making the playoffs, but they still could do it, but they have to win a game like this. I think Buccaneers could go ahead and take some frustration out on this Giants team, who has, although we know their pass rush is solid, they're 16th in scoring, 29th run defense, tied for 22nd in yards per play. They don't force a lot of turnovers. I really like Tampa Bay in this spot. I think they win by at least a touchdown this one, but give me the Bucs here, -5.5. All right, guys, next up, I have 2 picks coming from this game. I have Chiefs, Panthers, 1 p.m. kickoff on Sunday. Give me Kansas City here, -10, which is -125 on ESPN. Bet365, also available on DraftKings for -130, and BetMGM for -130. Look, the Chiefs are coming off, obviously, it was a really great game, but a loss to the Buffalo Bills that kind of got embarrassed. And I think I gave it out in last week's video. I think a lot of us probably could have seen that coming. The Chiefs had flirted with losses a lot in their previous games. They should have lost the Broncos game. The Buccaneers gave them a run for their money. A lot of close games. Even the Raiders kept it relatively close. The Chiefs, and I think it was a good thing for Kansas City they finally lost, because I think the undefeated thing, it's a lot of pressure. It's an extra weight that the Chiefs didn't need on this team. I think the Chiefs don't necessarily need to go ahead and have we need to get right game. But I do think there's a little bit of hey, we lost last week. We've kind of had a couple, rough games where we won, but they were close. I think the Chiefs are due for a little big win to kind of remind the league, hey, yeah, you know what? We lost. We haven't we're not the sexiest team this year, but we are still the Chiefs. I think they need a signature win here to go ahead and let the people know, by the way, we are still this team. We can blow out opponents if we really want to. I think the Panthers are really just an abysmal team. I think the Chiefs absolutely crushed them here. I think the Chiefs could possibly win by 3 touchdowns in this game. Everybody's spoken up the Lions, and for good reason, but I think Kansas City, they are still obviously the kings of the league right now, and they really don't have a big win. They've only covered the spread of -10. Only one game they won by double digits, which was that Saints game back on October 7th. Every other game, they failed to cash the over. They have pushed against the Niners. They beat them by 10, so 2 double-digit wins this year, but Carolina is just really that bad. They have covered the spread of +10 in just 30% of the game. They've lost by 10 or more in 6 of their games this year, so really bad spots. The Panthers are also just 3-9, 25% hit rate against the spread in their last 12 games as an underdog. It's just really not a good spot at all. You look at the numbers. I mean, the Chiefs' offense isn't great on paper, but the Panthers' defense, one of the worst in the NFL, 32nd, giving up 31 points per game. On the flip side, they have the 29th scoring offense, the Chiefs' top 10. So I just don't see where Carolina scores points. I don't see where they keep this game close. I think Kansas City should roll them here. I just don't see where the Panthers are going to keep this game close in any aspect. And then piggybacking off of that, my second pick from this game, I'm going Chiefs team total here, over 26.5 points. It's minus 130 on DraftKings. They've only cashed it in 4 out of 10 games this year, a 40% hit rate, but they have gotten really close a couple times. See 26 points versus the Bengals, 26 points versus the Saints. You could, if you really wanted to, knock a point off, take them at 25.5, and then the data becomes a 60% hit rate. The line, I think, is like minus 148. If you do that, I think they can go ahead and cash 27 points in this one for sure. Again, the Panthers are giving up 31 points per game on average, so as long as the Chiefs hit that average, we're good to go here. I just truly don't see why the Chiefs don't score. The only way I don't see this hitting is if Kansas City just decides, hey, we're just not going to, we're going to leave the cars in the garage. We're not going to try and do a lot of scoring here. We're not going to try and do anything crazy. We're just going to get the win and get out of here, which has kind of been their thing this year. But I do think this is a game where the Chiefs should, even if they win and they don't give it their all, the Panthers are just that bad where they should be able to go and score 27 points. So, they had 27 versus the Raiders, 27. They've scored on some good teams, 27 plus points. So I think it's a pretty good spot here for the Chiefs with their spread and the team total over at 26.5 points. All right, guys, next up we got Titans-Texans, 1 p.m. kickoff on Sunday. I almost didn't take anything in this game. I think this is going to be an ugly game. If there's any game to not watch this week, this might be one of them. I'm going to go and rock with the under here, 41.5. I think it is the only pick in this game other than maybe some player props that has some value here. I just don't like either side. The Texans offense, they're coming off a nice win against the Cowboys where they did score a healthy amount of points. I did give the Texans team total over last week. That was one of the many hits we had in last week's video. But the Titans defense, for what it's worth, they are actually pretty solid. They actually have had a tough schedule too, 4th toughest schedule in the NFL this year. I know their scoring defense, they're ranked 26th, but they are the number 1 passing defense in the NFL. They're 12th in rushing yards. This is a really solid defense team, 3rd in yards per play, 3rd and 3rd down conversions. They don't have a great pass rush, but overall, this is a really solid Titans defense. And this is a Texans offense that's 14th overall in scoring. The game last week versus the Cowboys definitely helps that number. But overall, I think the Titans are good enough defensively where they're going to be able to at least slow Houston down a tad bit. I don't think the Texans are going to be able to score a ton of points in this match. But the last 2 times they played this under cash, they have not played this year yet. The under, by the way, has hit, just the insights provided by Outlier. The under has hit in 7 of the Texans' last 10 games, so the under is a pretty good spot here. But the last 2 times they played, the under hit both times last year. 26-3 was the first meeting, and then 19-16 was the previous one. I think we're in line for a game similar to the second one when they beat Tennessee 26-3. I could see this game going like 24-10. I think 24-10 is a very realistic score. 24-13 is a very realistic score. Remember, it's 41.5, so even 27-13. The thing is, I don't think Houston's going to be able to score a ton of points because I think this is a division game. They're always a little tighter, a little weirder because the teams know each other very well. The Titans defensively are solid. The Texans offense has not been this world-crushing offense this year. I think Tennessee can slow them down enough to keep them under 30 points, which is the key here. We have to keep the Texans under 30 points in order to hit this bet. On the flip side, the Tennessee offense is abysmal, 28th in scoring, 29th in passing yards, 18th in rushing yards. The only strength is they can kind of run the football, but the Texans have a top 10 run defense. I think that the Titans are going to struggle to score points. Look at so far this year, Tennessee, their last couple games, 13 points, 17 points. They had 20 versus New England, 14, 10, 17. The only game this year where they've only 2 times have they scored 20 or more points versus the Patriots and versus the Dolphins. So the only 2 games where Tennessee has scored 20 or more points. They have struggled. They have scored less than 20 points in 8 of their 10 games this year. So this is a really solid bet for the under, I think. I just don't see Houston scoring a lot, and the Titans, they typically don't score many points. So give me the under here, 41.5. All right, guys, next up we got Cowboys-Commanders, 1 p.m. kickoff. I'm going Commanders team total over 27.5 points here. The spread is 10, and I was tempted to maybe take that, but I'm going to leave the over here, 27.5 on the team total. I think the Cowboys defense, we saw it last week versus Houston. We've seen it the last couple weeks, actually, is pretty dreadful. They are the 31st scoring defense in the NFL right now, 19th against the pass, 31st against the run. This Commanders team has had a rough couple weeks. This kind of feels like a get-right spot for Washington, where they've struggled the last few games. They have failed to cash this over in 4 straight games. They got close a couple times versus both the Giants and the Steelers. But a rough couple weeks. They lost each of their last 2 games against the Steelers and the Eagles. They had a tight one with a bad Giants team, and they should have lost that Bears game. They got lucky and got bailed out by a miracle Hail Mary. But the last month, and this kind of happened with Cliff Kingsbury offenses we've seen in the past, where the second half of the year, their offenses kind of fade out. They are averaging 28 points per game this year, which is the 4th best scoring offense in the NFL despite the last 4 weeks. They've had some really good scoring performances. The first time they're playing Dallas this year, too. So it's kind of the first time we're seeing Jaden Daniels against this Cowboys team. This just feels like a, hey, let's take a breath. Let's get right and beat up on a team that is an absolute dumpster fire right now. Nothing's going right for the Cowboys. I do like the spread of -10. The problem is I don't know. It's just something about those 10-point spreads. Typically speaking, the NFL, you don't see teams covering those spreads all that often. And yeah, the Cowboys aren't good right now, but the Commanders' defense is not exactly, I would say, great overall this year. They are tied for 14th in scoring, but they are 30th against the run, 5th against the pass. I know the Cowboys' offense with Cooper Rush doesn't look great, but there's just something about these division games. They're always a little bit tighter than you think they're going to be. I do think Washington scores a healthy amount of points. I think 28 points is a pretty fair bet. But I think the spread's a little too high for my liking. But I do like the Commanders here, over 27.5 points on the team total. All right, guys, next up we got Bears-Vikings, 1 p.m. kickoff on Sunday. I'm going with the Bears here, plus 3.5 as the home dog. Look, I think Minnesota has been getting lucky with their schedule here because they have not played great over their last month plus, really. They started off 5-0 and really impressive. Really, since that London game versus the Jets, they haven't been as impressive as they were in the first. They beat the Niners. They crushed the Texans. They beat Green Bay. We were like, wow, this team is really impressive. They beat the Jets, which doesn't look as impressive anymore. That was a tight one. Since then, they lose a tight one versus the Lions, which, to credit, they were one of the closest teams to beating the Lions this year, next to Tampa Bay, of course. They get beat by the Rams in prime time. They do beat the Colts in prime time, but it was a close game. They barely survive a Jaguars team led by Mac Jones. They struggled that whole game, and they beat Tennessee by 10. It was a decent game, but overall, not a very impressive run here for the Vikings. It seems like, especially the last 3 weeks or so, they've been bailed out by the fact they played the Colts, Jaguars, the AFC South gauntlet, we'll call it. They've gotten a little bit bailed out by the schedule of late, but this Vikings team, I think it's mainly the offense. I think has just really, Sam Darnold, as great as he's been, I think you're starting to see him kind of trail off a little bit. And the Bears, to give them credit last week, I thought they should have won that game. I mean, obviously they get the field goal blocked that would have won the game, but they played the Packers really, really well. For the first time in a while, the Bears offense looked kind of competent. DeAndre Swift had some good runs. Caleb Williams looked the best he had been in weeks. And the offensive line is finally getting healthy for Chicago here. So in this divisional rivalry game, like we talked about this whole video, these division games can be really tight. Look at the last 2 meetings. They haven't played yet this year, but the last time they played, the Bears won in Minnesota 12-10 last year. The previous meeting in Chicago, the Vikings won was 19-13. So these games are typically pretty close, pretty lower scoring, so the under might not be a bad play in this one. The Bears, by the way, are also 8-1 against the spread in their last 9 games at home. The only time they didn't cover was against that Patriots, which I was actually present in the house for that game, which was pretty impressive. But I do think that the Bears, their defense obviously top 10. They're going to make Sam Darnold uncomfortable in this one. I think the Bears offense will be just good enough to keep this game within a field goal. I don't think the Bears win. I think the Vikings probably get the W, but I think it's going to be pretty damn close. The Bears, they look motivated. They look ready to play. Give me the Bears plus 3.5. All right, guys, next up, we got a pretty easy one here, in my opinion. We got Broncos-Raiders, 4:05 p.m. kickoff. I also gave this pick in the HH video as well. I'm not going to spend too much time on this one, guys. We're going Broncos -6. I just don't know where the Raiders are supposed to keep in this game. This team is literally terrible on both sides of the ball. The Raiders, they're tied for 24th on offense. They're 29th on defense. The Broncos are really starting to hit their stride. We know all about Denver's defense. They're one of the top, maybe the best, if not one of the best defenses in the NFL. I know the Raiders at home obviously have been a little bit better, but they played one time this year already in Denver. The Broncos killed them 34-18. These games, the Broncos have last year I think it's difficult because the Broncos were so bad last year. But this year they already played once. The Broncos did win that matchup. But Denver's just trending in the right direction here. I mean, they got blown up by Baltimore, which is really bad, but then they almost beat the Chiefs, and then they crushed Atlanta last week, which I thought was a really impressive win for them. Bo Nix is really starting to look better and better every week. This Raiders team is just rolling over. I really just don't know, other than maybe because the rivalry game, maybe the Raiders stepped up their play a little bit. I think Denver is the absolute lock in this game, -6. This Raiders team is done. They can't score. They can't stop. They can't run the ball. They can't pass the ball. This Broncos defense is going to suffocate them. And just piggybacking off of that, because I think this Broncos defense is not going to let them do anything. I think the Raiders under 18.5 points. Team total is not a bad play. -135 on DraftKings. They've only cashed the under actually in 4 out of 10 games this year, but the last time these two teams played, they obviously only scored 18 points in that matchup, so they already cashed the under versus the Broncos once this year. The only big fear here is obviously garbage time. Maybe they go ahead and score some points. But overall, this Raiders team is abysmal offensively. I just don't see how they score, 19 or more points on a Broncos defense that is only giving up so far this year 16.6 points per game, third best scoring defense in the NFL. They're great against the pass, even better against the run. Give me the under on the Raiders and the Broncos all day. Broncos, I think, should absolutely demolish the Raiders in this matchup. All right, guys, only 3 picks left in our single bets. Next up, we got Niners-Packers, 4:25 p.m. kickoff. We're going with the Niners here on the money line, which is plus money, plus 114 on FanDuel. Look, the Niners historically have just had an advantage over the Green Bay Packers. The last time they played, obviously, was in the playoffs last year. The Niners won that game 24-21. Green Bay also, I got a weird feeling with them, and as an owner of the Packers, I can say I'm not feeling really comfortable with them right now. That game last week, they should have lost versus the Bears last week. Should have lost versus the Bears. They did, obviously. They lost the Lions. They barely survived the Jaguars. They barely survived Houston. Listen, the Packers, I think, are a good team overall, but I think they have some issues. Jordan Love has kind of been inefficient, I'd say, this year. Like, a lot of interceptions being thrown from him. And the Niners, obviously, this game means so much more for the 49ers than it does for the Packers. The Packers can lose this game and they're still fine. The Niners, if they lose this game could be the decider between playoffs and not. It's crazy to say, but in terms of the NFC playoff picture, there's a lot of teams that Niners need to jump, including the Packers. Having this tiebreaker in their back pocket could play a very big role come end of the season, come playoff time. So they need this game really badly. The Niners, again, have had a lot of success lately over the last decade plus against the Packers. The 49ers have kind of been the thorn in their side, and I think the 49ers are doing that again in this game. They get McCaffrey back. He's had a couple games under his belt. I think the Niners offense should have a better game this time around. They struggled last week versus Seattle. That was a really tough loss there for them, but I do think the Niners will have a bounce back game and beat the Packers and kind of remind the league, like, hey, we've had a little bit of a year from hell, but we're still here. Give me the Niners here on the money line, plus 114. Next up, we got Cardinals, Seahawks, 4:25 p.m. kickoff. I'm going with Arizona here, minus 1.5. It's actually plus money on Bet365, plus money on FanDuel, almost even on DraftKings. I'm really going off this on a value standpoint. Minus 1.5 for an Arizona Cardinals team that has been looking really good. They're coming off a bye week as well, so they had an extra week of preparation, of rest to prepare for this matchup versus Seattle. Look, this team has been playing really well of late since, we can go look through it. Since that Packers loss, which was a really bad one, they've really been on a roll. They beat the Chargers, impressive win. They beat the Dolphins, decent win. They crushed the Bears. They crushed the Jets. Arizona's been rolling. They've had some pretty good games. They beat the 49ers in San Francisco. They crushed the Rams. They played the Bills tight. They played the Lions tight. A couple, the Packers loss and the Commanders loss were both pretty bad and pretty embarrassing. But overall, Arizona's trending in the right direction. They had an extra week to prepare for this one. Seattle coming off a really physical, really intense game with the 49ers last week. I like for plus money too. I like Arizona, and Seattle's defense has, it's just not great this year. It's not great. I think they're getting better, and I think with McDonald as the head coach, they were always going to get better. But I think Arizona also, the key matchup there is this is a top 5 rushing offense versus a bottom 5 rushing defense. So, big win for Seattle last week. I just think the Seahawks are a very inconsistent team. And Arizona having the extra week to prep, the run they're on right now, again, they've won 4 straight games with a couple of really impressive wins in there. They've had some impressive wins all season long. I like the Cardinals with the value. If it wasn't plus money, I might consider taking Seattle because this game I think will be pretty close. Looking at the last time these two teams played, now it's really tough because last year the Cardinals were not particularly great. But the last time these two teams played back in January, the Seahawks did win, but it was 21-20, so it was a very tight game. In the previous matchup before that, the Cardinals had lost 20-10, but again, Arizona, that was when Kyler Murray was out, so it was really tough to base last year. But I think this game will be tight. I think it'll be close, but for plus money, I'll take my chance with the Cardinals here, minus 1.5. And my final single bet in this week's slate, guys, we're looking at the Ravens-Chargers game, 8:15 p.m. kickoff. I'm going with the Ravens minus 3 on the spread, which is also plus money on Caesars, almost even odds on DraftKings and FanDuel. Again, it's all about value here. I think the Chargers, and obviously I was dead wrong on them last week. I obviously had Bengals in the Sunday Night Football video, was wrong on that mark, but I was kind of right in some ways. The Chargers defense, I think, hadn't really been tested until that game, and they gave up their season high 27 points. They nearly blew it and lost that game. I think the loss for the Bengals was more about their troubles more than it was the Chargers' strengths. I think if the Bengals had a slightly better defense, they win that game. Now, that's, some people might say it's a stupid thing to say. I do think that Baltimore can get the win. They're coming off of, obviously, a brutal loss to the Steelers. I think they are the better team, not by a ton, but I think they are the better team in this matchup. I think that their offense should be able to give the Chargers some more issues, kind of like the Bengals did. You look at the Chargers defense, again, we know that they're 11th in rushing, 12th in passing, first scoring defense in the NFL, but I do think that Baltimore, which has the 3rd best passing and 2nd best rushing offense, all these categories, they're basically top 3, top 5 in most of these key offensive categories. I think the Ravens offense, like the Bengals did last week, should give this Chargers team a run for their money. And unlike the Bengals, now I know the Ravens defense has not been great. They've been getting better 10 points versus the Broncos, 18 points versus Steelers. I mean, these are bad offenses, to be fair. The Ravens' defense isn't great either, but I do think Baltimore's defense is a little more trustworthy just because of the coaching, too. I think Harbaugh and the coaching staff they have, I trust them a little bit more. Their run defense is also really solid, second-best run defense in the NFL. The weakness is the pass defense. I don't know if the Chargers' passing attack has what it takes to take advantage of this defense. I like the Ravens. They also have a really good pass rush, and the Chargers' offensive line has been okay. I think the Ravens will absolutely win and roll here. So give me the Ravens here, -3 for almost plus money, too. Really good value. All right, guys, we now move into the parlay and teaser portion of this week's video. Starting off with a 3-leg parlay, say moneyline parlay. I do it every week. It's kind of like our must-win parlay, if you will, where we're just giving up some money lines that I really, really like in these games. So we're going 3-leg parlay. It's only plus 118, so not a crazy big parlay, but I like all these teams. I think I'd be really surprised if any of these 3 teams lose this game. We're going Buccaneers on the money line. We're going Texans on the money line. And surprisingly, I'm going Dolphins. I think the Patriots are a tough play, but I think this game means so much more to Miami. And in Miami, New England has traditionally struggled. I think the game will be a little closer than people think, but I do think the Dolphins will come away with the victory there. So 3-leg parlay plus 118 odds. If you want to throw one more leg to make it a little more intriguing, looking through this matchup, I would say, let's see, with something with value here. I would say Broncos. Actually, that's a pretty good one. 4-leg parlay plus 199. So we'll go with that. We'll add the extra leg. So the official parlay is a 4-leg parlay plus 199. These are the 4 teams I think will absolutely win these games in big fashion. Next up, guys, we have a 4-leg parlay full of alternate spreads. I have Chiefs -7, Buccaneers -5.5, Dolphins -3, and Broncos -6.5. So a couple of alternate spreads. We're bringing the Chiefs spread down. We're keeping the Buccaneers spread the same and the Broncos spread basically the same. Just really the Chiefs and Dolphins. We're taking a few points off to make it a little more comfortable betting those spots, but over like it's a 4-leg parlay plus 600 odds. Again, really good spots there. And then our next parlay, guys, we have a 3-leg parlay, all consisting of some alternate totals. So we have the over 41.5 in the Pats-Dolphins game, the under 42.5 in the Titans-Texans game, and the over 43.5 in Cowboys-Commanders. Really, we're not altering too much. -195, -146, and -147. We're basically either adding a point or taking a point off of all of these totals. 3-pick parlay plus 328 odds. I like all these spots for the totals. And our final parlay, guys, we have the Let's Get Nuts parlay. It's a 4-leg parlay. We either have a money line or an alternate total. These are the teams that I feel the most confident about, and a couple underdogs in there as well. So we have the Cardinals money line. I think they absolutely win that one. We have Niners money line on the road. That's a risky one. It's a plus money play, but I do like the Niners in the spot. We have Bears +7. We're taking a couple points down more, so keep it within a touchdown. We have Broncos -9.5. Again, I think the Broncos absolutely roll here. You parlay all 4 together, it's plus 1,290 odds. So pretty good value there on the 4-leg parlay. All right, guys, wrapping things up, we have a couple of teasers to go ahead and share. We have, obviously, our must-win tease, which did win last week. Guys, the rules are very simple. All you have to do is comment must-win down below, and if the teaser hits, one lucky commenter will win a free $25 Amazon gift card. We did have a winner last week. Let's see if we can't get another winner this week. We have our 3-team teaser here in this one. We're going to go ahead and do, I think we did 7 points last week, so we'll do 7 points plus 130 odds, so it's a plus money play. Can't really complain about that. Again, these are the 3 teams I love the most this week. Obviously, some people would say it's risky to put the same ones. I think these teams are really good spots. So 7-point teaser plus 130 odds. We're getting the Chiefs at -4. We're getting the Bucs at +1 and the Broncos +1. All those 2 teams do have to win, which I think they will do. And the Chiefs, win by more than a field goal. If the Chiefs don't cover -4, I'm going to be absolutely pissed. But I think it's a pretty good spot. So comment must win. If this teaser hits, one lucky commenter will win free a $25 Amazon gift card. Next up, guys, we have our total tease, the 3-leg teaser plus 130 odds. Just doing some totals here. We're taking the over in the Niners-Packers game, taking that to over 40.5. The under in the Titans-Texans, taking it under 47.5. And the over in the Pats-Dolphins game, over 39. Makes them a little more comfortable, a little easier to swallow. Pause. But plus 130 odds, pretty good value on that teaser as well. And then last but not least, guys, we have the big kahuna. It's a 4-leg teaser, -140 odds, a 13-point tease. So really, we're just throwing some things where we think that absolutely cannot, it has to hit. Again, we're going on the Chiefs there, +2. All they have to do is just win, and they cover. If they lose this game, I will be shocked. But +2. We're getting the Commanders +2.5. Again, they can even lose now, but keep the game close. I think the Commanders should win that game also. We have Broncos +7. So even if the Broncos somehow lose, which I guess could happen, as long as they keep the game within a touchdown, which if the Raiders beat the Broncos by more than a touchdown, again, I'd be absolutely shocked. And then we have the Cardinals at +14 here. The odds have switched. I got them -1.5. They're now +1. So might have to consider changing that pick. But plus 14, keep it within 2 touchdowns. I think they absolutely should be able to. So that's our big kahuna tease, 4-leg teaser, minus 140 odds. So guys, that is it for today's video. Thank you very much as always for watching. One more time, guys, please make sure to go ahead and hit the subscribe button, hit that like button, and drop a comment down below. Back next week with another NFL Oracle video. But until then, I hope you're all winners. Let's have another massive week, guys. Let's go ahead and win some money.